Welcome to the Sisters of the Shire podcast. I'm Abby, your host, and joining me on this adventure in podcasting through J.R.R. Tolkien's magical world of Middle-earth is my cousin and co-host Ashley. Today we are continuing our quest into the Silmarillion, specifically exploring the final section titled Of the Rings of Power and the Third Age.
If you are new to our podcast or the Silmarillion, we recommend starting from episode 1 to catch up on how we do things around here and all the other essential background information to help you better understand the episode and us.
Yes. Together, we'll help you remember all the different names and places so you can better understand the story. So whether you're a seasoned Middle-earth explorer or just setting out your front door, if you don't keep your feet, there's no knowing where you might be swept off to. Let's go!
Let's go! I always love that quote.
I know.
Oh, how are you, Abby?
Well, you can tell that I am like 100% healthy. I'm living my best life.
This is phase two of the cold.
No,
this
like
is now your life.
Yeah,
you will forever have a runny, plugged up nose.
No, it's like the aftermath of when you're like have a sore throat and you have a runny nose, and now it's all stuck. It's stuck in there. It's stuck in the nose. And it's like that kind of annoying stuck where like it sometimes goes in between your nose and the back of your throat and you feel like you're like choking. And you're like, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Help me.
Yeah. Well, I plast my plague. I plath my plague onto my daughter. So we have a little Lizzie in the background. So if you hear any coughing or shuffling or coloring, you know she likes to loudly color. This is mom life for us. So
yes.
Yeah.
I'm the last one out of my family to get it, so they're all happy and healthy, and I'm like, good for you. So fun.
At this point, between the vacations and me being sick, I can't remember the last time. This sounds weird, but the last time Nate slept in the same bed as me.
I thought you were going to say cooked dinner or something like.
Oh, well, that too. Yeah, he has surgery on Monday. So he's like, stay away, keep your plague away.
Yeah, he can't get sick or he can't get his surgery.
Right. So
imagine getting a sore throat and having surgery on your throat. I can't even.
Oh, yeah.
Ugh, no, thank you. Everybody send good vibes to Ashley's husband that he has a successful surgery.
Yes.
Where
he'd like to feel his hands again.
A robot, huh?
He'd like to feel his hands again.
Oh, yikes. Sidebar of the story. I'm feeling particularly old because this little boy that I used to babysit when he was like my son's age, so like 2, is getting married tomorrow.
Is this Oliver?
Yes, it's my baby Oliver. He's getting married in another state, but then he's coming here because he has a lot of family and friends here to have a wedding reception, like a second wedding reception.
Right.
So he's having it at our art studio because we have an art studio down here.
Oh, cool.
He used to work for our company, so he knows that place. So it's kind of like fun for him to come back and have his reception here. Anyway, so it's a working art studio and a woodworking shop. And our friend who's a woodworker moved out, and so we're clearing that space so it's empty so we can use it for the reception. But there's giant woodworking machinery in there, like very heavy old steel, like taller than my husband machinery or whatever. And my husband was moving it with a pallet jack thing and it fell on him.
Oh my gosh.
It like crushed his hand and his leg, and
man.
Both of our husbands would like to feel their hands.
Yes, I appreciate that.
Would like to feel their hands this week, so
all the vibes to all the hands.
All the vibes, please.
Yeah, I bet Baron's like, I'd like to feel my hand too, but no luck on that.
What is the other one? Not
Maedros. Maedros. Me too, man. Me too.
Luke Skywalker, Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah.
Frodo only lost a finger, so he's good.
Well, how much do you remember of last week?
Oh, let me see if I can get through this mucus in my brain and get to what I remember. This is when we learned a little bit more about Isildur, right?
Yes.
That he was making dumb decisions. We're like, come on, man.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when he had the ring, right? He had the ring, and it betrayed him. And he died, right?
Mm-hmm.
And his sons died, sadly, too. But he had another son.
Yes.
There is He had another son who was a little baby at the time, which was sad.
Mm-hmm.
And he was in Rivendell with his mom, right?
Right.
And he didn't die, thank goodness.
Sorry, real quick. Did you switch the thing back over?
Oh, did I? I can switch it now.
Switch it now.
Switch it back to my new... I'm sorry. I apologize, listeners.
That is so much better.
Switched it back to my...
I could not tell because it was like you're still really close, so it sounded still okay, but it's just not quite right.
Okay, I'm back. Oh,
that is
better than
so
ever.
much better. Better than ever. Oh, okay. You just blew your nose. You just blow your nose, and now it's
yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm cleared up. I'm healed.
The magic elixir. Okay, sorry. Wife and one son were safe in Rivendell.
Yes. Which is so sad. Why are these guys leaving their wives and families so willy-nilly?
I don't know. I don't appreciate it.
I'd be mad.
I'd be mad. Yeah.
I'd be like, what the heck, man?
Well, she doesn't even get a name, so that's how much Isildur thought of her.
Oh, no. Come on.
We decided it's Ellen.
Oh, yeah. And then, that's pretty... I can't... I'm trying to get through the mucus of my brain.
Yeah. They did some post-battle cleanup. Remember, they dismantled the Tower of Barad-dûr, but they didn't do that great of a job. They also tried setting some guards in Mordor, but no one really wanted to do it because it's too spoopy. And then they're like, okay, we'll work on rehabilitating and getting all these Sauron followers back on our side. They didn't do a good job of that either because I think you said they have heart-shaped lockets with Sauron inside.
Yeah. Exactly.
Then with Elendil and Gil-galad dead, their friendship kind of also ended the relationship between the elves and the men, and they kind of just drifted apart. Nothing like a huge rift or anything. It's not like the dwarves and elves had this huge animosity towards each other. They just kind of drifted apart. Yeah. We also learned that it was not only Elrond that was telling Isildur to cast it into the fire, but it was also Círdan was there as well.
One of the oldest elves.
The oldest elf, yeah. Shout out to Círdan. Círdan respect.
Drop that skincare routine. Tell me your secrets. You look amazing.
Well, apparently it's the sea. It's got to have something to do with the sea, right?
Mm-hmm.
But Isildur grew too attached to the ring. He saw it as a weregild or compensation for the loss of his brother and father. But it's like, get in line, Isildur. There's plenty.
There's a lot of people who died.
Then Isildur decides to, all right, since father's dead, I'm going to take his kingdom of Arnor in the north. And you know what? Since my brother died, how about I give the southern kingdom of Gondor to his son, Isildur's nephew, Meneldiel. And he also... Meneldiel. Isildur also takes the seedling that he rescued from Sauron and plants it in his brother's honor in the Tower of Minas Anor. And this white tree is henceforth known as the White Tree of the Eldar, which is...
Because there wasn't a bunch of those to begin with.
Right.
I want someone to be like, it's the White Tree of his... What is it? Of Isildur, is that what you said?
The White Tree Eldar is this one.
Of the Eldar. And he's like, no. That was my father. Call me... Call me the White Tree of Isildur, please.
Yes.
Yeah.
We also discussed what happened to Sauron's body versus his spirit, both when the One Ring was cut from his body and then later when the One Ring is destroyed later in the books.
Because he can't die, right?
He can't die. His spirit does not die. But he just is because he, kind of like Voldemort, put so much of his power into the One Ring. Once the One Ring is destroyed, he is just powerless. So he can't take form again. Yeah. Don't put all your eggs in one basket there, Sauron. And then, yes, sadly, Isildur does die on his way to rule his northern kingdom of Arnor, along with his 3 sons. And the One Ring sinks to the bottom of the river Anduin and is lost for a time. The shards of Narsil were saved and later delivered to Isildur's only remaining son and his wife in Rivendell. And this was mainly due to the awesome, valiant efforts of Isildur's squire.
Yeah, who should definitely get a raise.
Uh-huh. No, we decided that he gets to be with Isildur's wife now. That's his reward.
She deserved better anyway. She deserved better anyway.
Yeah. Then his son, Valandil, went on to rule the northern kingdom of Arnor. But sadly, after only a few generations, it becomes divided into petty realms, leading to its eventual decline and ruin, with many green mounds that I theorize could be the mounds that later become the Hobbit holes. Meanwhile, the southern kingdom of Gondor is just thriving, and the white tree is just flourishing, and it's awesome, and all things are great in the kingdom of Gondor. The end.
The end. Never.
Never, because despite us leaving last week with Gondor thriving, this is, of course, the Silmarillion, and that means that nothing good can last. There was one person, I have to respond to this right now because it's been weighing on me. One person sent a comment on the Spotify questions. It always asks, like, how are we doing? What do you think of the episode? And one person's like, good things can last. How about Baron and Luthien? I'm like, but...
I mean, did you listen to it?
I mean, they died. I'm not sure if you caught that part, but yeah. I mean, they got to live together until they died. So, I mean, I guess.
Yep.
They had to go through a lot of crappy stuff first. Anyways, back to our story this week. So things are going to go downhill for Gondor.
Silver linings.
Yeah. Quote, for the blood. I love that part. Quote, for the blood of the Númenóreans became much mingled with that of other men, and their power and wisdom was diminished, and their lifespan was shortened, and the watch upon Mordor slumbered.
Uh-oh, guys. Come on. Can't sleep on the job. Can't do this.
I know. And I was thinking about this. Like, if you lived a longer life, like, think of Círdan versus, like, Isildur. Like, Círdan has seen some stuff, guys. He has seen Sauron. He has seen Melkor, Morgoth, all up front, all up close. He's learned some things from that, and he is very wary because of that. If you had only seen Sauron for, like, a millisecond in your life, or if you hadn't seen, if, you know, Sauron was maybe gone by the time you were born, it was like your father that fought in the Battle of the Alliance or something like that, it's not quite as impactful, so you're not going to probably be as vigilant.
Like, yeah, I don't remember how we defeated them anyway, but I know we did. We can do it again.
I'm sure that Sauron guy wasn't as scary as everyone makes him out to be. I'm sure it's fine. We don't really need to, like, you know, keep an eye on things or make sure it doesn't happen again or anything like that.
Or maybe they were like in Harry Potter, like the minister who just was in denial. Like, he's like, no, this isn't happening. Nope. Everything's fine. Yep. Everything's good.
Everything's fine. So we last left Gondor in the hands of Anarian's son, R.I.P. Anarion, Isildur's nephew, Meneldiel. And this is in the year 2 of the Third Age, because it starts the Third Age when Sauron died. So year 2.
Year 2.
2. And we're going to go ahead and skip ahead 1,632 years, which is also, in case you're wondering, about 23 kings later. So we are now in the year 1634 in the Third Age. Now,
from year 2 to that?
Yes.
All right.
Bit of time has passed. And our current king of Gondor is a guy named Telimnar, which kind of has a cool name. It means silver fire.
Cool.
Yes. Sadly, his fire is about to go out because he doesn't get to stick around for very long. But this is the first kind of rock slide that will later trigger an avalanche for Gondor. This is like the first rumblings.
Wait, side note. When we get to the Lord of the Rings trilogy, like in the movies and stuff, it doesn't look like everybody's doing great anyway. So it has to get to that point, right?
Right. Yeah.
So like,
we're setting that up today.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we're setting up.
Okay.
Oh, and FYI, this episode's going to be a bit shorter. Sorry, it had a very natural stopping point, and I just went with it.
It's all good.
Plus, my daughter's sick, and we're sick, and life, people. But I will promise I will give you a really cool story in it.
Okay.
It's not going to be a boring one, I promise. So, quote... A plague came upon dark winds out of the east, and it smote the king and his children, and many of the people of Gondor perished. Then the forts on the borders of Mordor were deserted, and Minas Ithil was emptied of its people.
Minas Ithil is
Isildur's old tower.
Okay.
That, is like right on the border. So if you want to look at your first map, it's literally just a map of Minas Ithil and its surrounding areas. So just for a refresher, if Abby, you want to kind of explain what's on the map and where Minas Ithil is in regards to like Mordor.
Okay. So it is, Gondor is across the river. So it's to the west, and then Minas Ithil is that tower that was right before the only passage through the mountains to go to Mordor.
Correct. Exactly.
So there's a huge mountain range, and there's one good passage to go through it to get to Mordor, and Minas Ithil is that right in front of it. You have to literally get to there before you can get to Mordor.
Right. So it would make sense if a dark wind out of the east, which would be Mordor, was coming to the west. The first place it's going to hit in Gondor would be Minas Ithil.
Yes.
It's like the thing on the far west, eastern border.
The first barrier, I would say.
Yeah. So Minas Ithil is hit real hard. I'm assuming
armies of Mordor?
No, just from this plague, a dark wind plague, a sickness. Yeah.
Okay.
So it hits Minas Ithil real hard, basically wipes them all out. And then I'm assuming it kind of drifts on because it doesn't say where the king was at the time that this plague hit. And then it takes out a big chunk of Gondor, but also specifically the king and his children. So with the king and the immediate heirs gone, Minas Ithil abandoned, a significant part of the population gone, Gondor is now very weak and very vulnerable.
Okay. Does it have a king?
The king died. I think it ends up going to a cousin or a nephew or something like that in the meantime. But this span of years is just the first punch, the first sign that things are not going to be good for Gondor for their future.
Oh, no.
This significantly affects the rest of the future. So this plague kind of rears its head for about 300 years and just is very impactful for the population.
A plague for 300 years?
It doesn't say that specifically, but it says the plague hit and then 300 years later, this event's going to happen. So I'm assuming it's kind of going through the population. They're trying to rebuild, comes back. I mean, that's kind of how plagues work, just from history. But they are not in any type of position of strength is basically what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So after that span of 300 years, quote, evil entered again into the Black Land, or Mordor, secretly, and the ashes of Gorgoroth were stirred as by a cold wind, for dark shapes gathered there.
Oh no. Dark shapes.
Dark shapes. All right. What do you think the dark shapes are, Abby?
Nazgul?
Nice guess. Quote, it is said that these were indeed the Ulari, whom Sauron called the Nazgul, the 9 ring wraiths that had long remained hidden, but returned now to prepare the ways of their master, for he had begun to grow again.
So they were lazy. So I wonder what the plague was that came from Mordor. Was it from Mordor or is it just like random?
It says from the east, so it's like, yeah, from Mordor. and there was a history of this happening with Melkor too, that a plague would kind of come from that area. So sometime between the Battle of Eregion, the battle to get the rings from Celebrimbor and stuff, to now, the 9 rings of men have all been passed out, and they've already turned them all into ring wraiths. I really want to know that story, but just get a float by past that just real quick. So they're stirring up things in Mordor, and they take about 20 years to do this, and then they make their first stroke. Quote, and they came by night out of Mordor over the passes of the mountains of shadow, and took Minas Ithil for their abode, and they made it a place of such dread that none dared to look upon it. Thereafter, it was called Minas Morgul, the Tower of Sorcery. So this is one of the things that made finding accurate maps for the time period we were in so tricky, because the majority of them already had Minas Morgul in the place of Minas Ithil. And it just like would be so confusing. And I also didn't want to spoil this possibly big reveal for you because I wasn't sure if you'd figure this out. Or we do know Minas Morgul from the movie. In the movie, they actually give a great visual of how creepy and dark it is, because Minas Morgul is when Frodo and Sam are climbing up those impossible stairs and the armies start marching out and the Witch King of Angmar comes out in all his evil glory and that green thing shoots up in the air. That is Minas Morgul. So it's kind of sad. You know, this tower that held one of the white trees, I'm sure looked beautiful back in its day, was Isildur's main home, is now the home of the Nazgul. I imagine it was kind of a sneaky, takeover at first, but then, I'm sure the flashes of random green light kind of gave them away. And from that time on, quote, Minas Morgul was ever at war with Minas Anor in the west. So, reminder, if you want to look back at that map, Minas Anor was where Anarian's tower was, and I'm assuming that's where his son ruled from as well. It doesn't specifically say that, but that would make sense to me. So if you're looking at Minas Ithil, now Minas Morgul on the map, so that is on the northeast. Then we have the River Anduin with Osgiliath on both sides, because remember they did the bridge over it. And then Minas Anor is kind of in the southwest. So the majority of the people are in Minas Anor right now, assuming they kind of fleeing. So the only other remaining kind of main city of Gondor is Osgiliath. So what happens to Osgiliath during this? They literally built it on 2 sides of a river. Like, we'll just split this city into 2 and have this really cool bridge across it somehow. And in the movies, in case you're wanting to know, this is kind of where Faramir, sorry. Well, Boromir and Faramir fight there too. But Faramir is there with Frodo and Sam for a bit. It's kind of that city where the orcs kind of launch their attack onto Gondor. Because, quote, then Osgiliath, which in the waning of the people had long been deserted, became a place of ruins and a city of ghosts. So Gondor is going downhill. And it's so sad because the reason that it was on both sides of the river, because it doesn't make any sense that way either anyway, but because it was supposed to be like jointly ruled by Anarion and Isildur. That was like their capital city, and now it's abandoned. It does get to keep its name, as it stays unclaimed, even by the time of the Lord of the Rings. It's not really in control of either Mordor or Gondor. It kind of goes back and forth. But with Gondor continuing to weaken, they decide to, let's give ourselves a rebrand. We need a new campaign slogan. We need a new system in place. So this is the people of Gondor. Minas Morgul has been taken over. Osgiliath is abandoned. What should we do with Minas Anor? Let's give it a rebranding. Quote, Minas Anor endured, and it was named anew. What do you think its name is? It's going to blow your mind once you figure it out. Minas Tirith, the Tower of Guard. Connections. So, in case you don't remember from the movie or the books, this is the main city in Gondor that we get to see in the movies. It is the white, beautiful city with its multi-layers, and it's where the Battle of Pelennor Fields takes place, and the main battle of the Return of the King is in Minas Tirith. It's where Gandalf and Pippin go. It is beautiful, and I just love that it had an origin that we never thought of. Quote, "For there the kings caused to be built in the citadel a white tower, very tall and fair, and its eye was upon many lands. Proud still and strong was that city, and in it the white tree still flowered for a while before the house of the kings." So there was a king of the South Kingdom and a king of the North Kingdom, remember? And the North Kingdom, they gone. They're dead. They're petty realms. They're Dunedain rangers that are just wandering. They don't remember. They're homeless. They're mysterious and strangers. So that kingdom is gone. So now we just have the South Kingdom. It's kind of hanging on. It's been through a lot. It went through the plague. It's gone through this, one of the towers being taken. Their people are dwindling so much that they basically are only in control of one city now. So if you look at the other map I sent you, if you just Google Gondor, basically, you can look at this map and it makes a lot more sense now from what we know of the movies. We have Minas Morgul. It doesn't say Minas Ithil anymore. And we have Minas Tirith instead of Minas Anor. That's how the Middle Earth map looks for the rest of the for the rest of the story. So with Osgiliath no longer under the control, as we saw portrayed in the movies, like I said, it becomes Minas Tirith's main job to defend, quote, "the passage of the river against the terrors of Minas Morgul and against all the enemies of the west, orcs and monsters and evil men, and thus the lands behind them west of Anduin were protected from war and destruction." Should say east, maybe not west there. But anyways, so if you look at the map, and if you remember from the movies, that is literally Minas Tirith's job. Stuff comes from Mordor, tries to cross that river, and they fight and kick him back over and over and over and over again. That is Minas Tirith's main job, hold the river, basically. And I kind of get Boromir's bitterness against Aragorn now. Boromir, along with all of his descendants, they've been on the front line for generations, keeping the rest of Middle-earth safe. He literally says, "By the blood of our people are your lands kept safe." Oh, yeah, literally, yeah. And what is Aragorn doing? Falling in love with the elf girl. So I kind of get it now. It sounded really petty in the movies, of course, but I get it. So, are you ready to hear your random yet epic side story? I promised you a good one. So, we are now in the year 2043. So, a bit of time has passed. And our current king of Gondor is a man by the name of Earnor. I think that's how you pronounce it, but it does not. It literally looks like Earnur. Earnur. It's Earnur. Earnor. I think. Anyways, that's how I'm saying it, which means servant of the sea. We're back to the sea for a little bit. So there have been a lot of battles that we haven't gotten to hear about, but there is one battle that Tolkien didn't go into detail, but I'm going to summarize it here because I feel it will help the context of this particular part of the story. So I literally am just summarizing this battle as fast as I can, but it's so cool. Okay, so I'm going to tell you about the Battle of Fornost. 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 So this was before our man Earnor was king. At this time, he was a general in the army. And this was also, sadly, when the kingdom of Arnor in the north was still hanging on by a thread. And that particular thread was a place called Arthedain. And this was the last remaining kingdom of the north. And they were being attacked by the armies of Angmar, led by the Witch King of Angmar. And he was wiping these guys out. They had the capital. The king had already fled. Victory was like just minutes away. Ultimately, Arthedain does fall. But an army from the southern kingdom shows up, led by our man Earnor, who also teamed up with some elves of Lindon and even some from Rivendell, who were randomly led by the one and only Glorfindel. Glorfindel, possibly from Gondolin, if we don't believe he died, or that is later going to help the hobbits get out of the Shire and the forest and stuff. Cool guy, Glorfindel. With their forces combined, they were able to kick Angmar's armies out of the North Kingdom, but the Witch King managed to escape to the south. And this is when Glorfindel himself famously prophesies that the Witch King of Angmar would not fall by the hand of a man. Shout out to my girl Eowyn, who proved that prophecy true. Anyways, when the Witch King fled south to Mordor, he never forgot his defeat at the hands of Earnor. He had his name on a list. He's like, I'm gonna get that guy one day. You'll be sorry. So now, many years later, he hears that this same Earnor is now the king of Gondor. And this is when the Witch King challenges him to single combat. And at first, Earnor's like, he wants to do it, but his steward, like his advisor, is like, you probably shouldn't. Just an idea. So first, Earnor doesn't respond. He refuses the challenge. Well, he responds by refusing the challenge. But 7 years later, he challenges him again. And this time, Earnor is like, you know what? I'm going to do it. And now we are back to our current story in the Silmarillion. Quote, he, Earnor, rode alone to the gates of Minas Morgul to meet the challenge of the Morgul Lord. And he met him in single combat. But he was betrayed by the Nazgul and taken alive into the city of torment, and no living man saw him ever again. By the way, that is all that Tolkien was going to tell you about this story. Just those few lines. But I'm also curious, like, what the trick was. Like, so did he say, I'm going to challenge you to single combat, and then they all surround him? They're like, psych, actually, I'm taking you captive. Or did they say, like, actually, they were going to do no weapons, just, fists, and then he pulls out a knife? Like, what trick was it? And also, how does the Witch King of Angmar challenge one to a duel? Because that's essentially what this is. Does he slap you in the face with his spiky metal gauntlet? That's the only way I can see this happening. And I'm also curious, like, why leave his fate to such a mystery? Like, obviously they killed him, right? Like, that's the only thing that could have happened. But why not just say that he died? Like, and he was never seen ever again. That sucks. So, somewhat RIP to Earnor. But, this is a very cool story, in my opinion. But it's also very important. It's significant for the story because with Earnor's disappearance, death, that caused him to be the last king of Gondor until many years later when Aragorn shows up. But this is the moment that the line of kings fails and the stewards take over ruling Gondor. But remember, Elrond was the only one keeping track of the lineages of this line. And we're going to find out a little bit next week why he kept such track of that and things like that. I'll go a bit more into detail. I can definitely see this as something that the elves knew, but the men of Gondor are just like, that line died. And technically, Gondor itself doesn't have a king. This is a line through Isildur that was in the north that just completely disintegrated. So you can definitely see, like, oh yeah, that one that died too. Like, there's no kings anymore. The line of kings is dead. It's very believable. Hello? You're there. So do you want to explain to the listeners what's happening in case it sounds different?
Dear listeners, we were talking about this plague that washed over Gondor and the lands. The plague has seeped into my technology and has killed 2 2 laptops, and now I'm on my mobile device.
Which we've never done before.
Please excuse if it sounds weird or there was some weird editing that had to happen to kind of cut me back into this episode. My computer decided to die, which is really annoying because
so Muriel of
when I grabbed it from the bedroom, it had a full battery, and so I didn't bring the charger because I was like, I have full battery anyway, I don't need it. And we're only in there for like 30 minutes, and then it was like, your computer's gonna die. And I was like, wait, what? And so I ran and got the charger and I put it in, and it didn't do anything, and then it died. And then my other laptop won't stop booting up. Like, I can't get past the like booting up of the computer to sign in to do anything on my computer. So
well, we're almost done, so I appreciate you hanging in there despite the technology working against you.
I had to basically, like, those movies of like hackers that are like doing like typing on a computer, typing on another computer, trying to get on their phone. That was me trying to get back onto this podcast.
Well, I appreciate it because you get to hear just a little bit more, because we were so close to being done.
Yes. Okay.
So I don't know how long I was talking to myself because I was basically just saying, though, that it makes sense that Gondor, Boromir, thought that there were no more kings because the king in his realm died and didn't leave any heirs. And the king in the North Kingdom basically just disappeared, disintegrated. It just died out. And no one ever really knew what happened. So the surprise that Boromir shows at the Council of Elrond, I feel is, that's probably surprising. Wait, Isildur's heirs are alive? Like, that must have been shocking to them.
Yeah. Plus also like annoying because they're like, we've been fighting the whole time. We could have used your help.
So this is when the line of kings fails and the stewards take over ruling Gondor, because Denethor is a steward. He's not the king of Gondor. Mm-hmm, right. Mm-hmm. So we're going to take a bit of a turn here, and we're going to kind of talk about the rest of Gondor for a little bit. And there is a deeper story as to how this comes about, but it is at this time that Tolkien wants to establish, he wants to let the readers know that this is the time that the Rohirrim, the horsemen of the north, decided to make a home in the land of Rohan and would remain allies of Gondor throughout these years.
Which, did they come from Gondor, or were they like...
Yes and no. I've seen a few things that they were just Northmen. That's very unspecific. It's not very clear. Yeah.
Of course.
I did remember reading one little story that these Northmen helped the king of Gondor, or a king of Gondor at one point in time. And so they were gifted this land of Rohan as like thanks. And that's why they kind of like separated themselves a little, but it's, not very clear. So that's Rohan. And as for the north of Gondor, if you want to look at a map for the north of Gondor, I'm not sure if you can. Okay.
I can't, but I assume.
Okay. So, fellow readers, if you're looking at a map of Gondor, Gondor is mainly in the kind of central east side next to Mordor. And then to the kind of northwest is Rohan. But to like the central north is the Argonath, which is the pillars of the guys holding out their hands, which we found out was Isildur and Anarion. So it wants to paint this picture for you. Quote, "Beyond the falls of Varos and the gates of Argonath, there were as yet other defenses, powers more ancient, of which men knew little, against whom the things of evil did not dare to move, until, in the ripening of time, their dark lord Sauron should come forth again. And until that time was come, never again did the Nazgul dare to cross the river or to come forth from their city in shape visible to men."
In shape visible to men? That's scary. That means that they can be the opposite of that. Oh, no.
So, that's actually where I'm going to leave you today. I'm sorry, it's kind of a weird stopping point, but they literally just pivoted from here and went a completely different direction. So I thought it'd be a kind of a natural stopping point to hear all of what Gondor has formed into over time.
how it got to
Yeah.
the point of where most people know it as through the movies and books and
Exactly.
stuff.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I did find like it interesting that they didn't dare to cross the river Anduin, but in the movie, like the nine crossed the river Ison, you know, on a Midsummer's Eve or something like that. Like they actually left. That means Sauron is back. Like that is like the sign. So
Yes.
I just thought that was kind of
They left
connection.
their welcoming, super beautiful, full of light
Yes.
home and left it to, yeah. That's interesting. I do wish that they had like a side story of how the Nine and the Nazgul were
I know.
created.
I know. And we only get to like hear about like 2 of their names or something. I think there's maybe a book about the Witch King of Angmar. And then there's like a random other guy. I forgot his name, but yeah. Weird. Jeff. Yeah, Jeff the Nazgul. Well, that's all I've got.
It's like in Monsters vs. Aliens. What's your monster name? Susan. Oh, I just scared myself. Well, thank you for teaching me today,
welcome.
and I apologize for my technical.
You're fine. We made it work.
What is it? Technical difficulties. Yeah, dude. Technology, not very helpful sometimes.
Speaking of technology,
We made it happen. Thank you.
we made it happen. I was on ChatGPT. I was just curious. My brother always talks about how he uses it so much for like his teaching, like to come up with like games for his kids and stuff. And I was like, I bet we could come up with it for our trivia questions. So I said, okay, you know, ChatGPT, come up with 10 trivia questions about the Silmarillion. And I was like dying laughing at some of the questions because it's a robot. It doesn't exactly know the right answers. So it was like, or it doesn't know how to word the questions right. It was like, so in the Silmarillion, Fëanor creates the Silmarils. Who created the Silmarils? Or what was the other one that was like, no. In the Silmarillion, what monster captures Beren and Luthien? And it said Ungoliant. I'm like, what? That didn't happen. I mean, that's a cool sounding side quest, but like, that's not real. I tried to say that. I know.
Robot.
Tried to say that Beren and Luthien's son was like Fingolfin or something like that. I'm like, but no. Like, so it was bad. And it also came up with a bunch of like knock knock jokes type deal that I'm gonna have to tell all of you later because I was laughing. So funny, robots.
Well, everybody give good vibes to Ashley's hubby who's getting surgery
Thank
soon.
you.
And good vibes to Ashley's poor sickling child.
Yes, and to Abby and her hubby, her broken hubby.
I know.
Be sure to.
He showed me his leg. And it was like black bruise, like this huge black bruise on it. And I'm like, he's like, I guess it hit my leg too. And I'm like, how do you not remember that? I was like, did you black out? Did you like do all this stuff? And I was like, he's like, yeah, I guess it hit my leg. And I'm like, a bruise that big and that dark, and you don't remember how you got it.
Sounds like a woman thing. I don't remember where this bruise came from. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Sisters of the Shire Podcast. Become a patron and join our Patreon at patreon.com/Sisters of the Shire Podcast. You can become a dwarf friend of the Shire, like our friend Dan, best friend Dan, or an elf friend of the Shire, like Christine and Tom. Remember, in case we haven't hyped it up enough, we are going to do some trivia episodes at the end of the Silmarillion, and they're only for our patrons. So if you want in, it's going to be epic. It's going to be fun. It's going to be awesome. There will be prizes better than a high five. Abby told me she would make sure of that. And so, sign up for our Patreon.
It's true.
Please also rate us on whatever platform you listen to your podcast on.
Yeah. And like we said, we love talking to you on Instagram. So if you guys have anything, like we had some friends share some art that like was pretty cool, like Silmarillion Tolkien art. So if you guys have any of that stuff, we love to share and get your name out there.
Sure.
And if you become a Patreon subscriber at a certain tier, if you have a business, we will give you a small shout out to your business on this platform. So that's another incentive.
And then also, just real quick, in world news, Brazil overtook Spain. I think that's their origin country, though, so I'm kind of confused. But
I know. They took it back. They're like, you took us over, we're coming back. We're
the
getting
student
you now.
has overcome the master. No, it's Portugal. Brazil is Portugal because they speak Portuguese. Sorry, Brazil. Sorry, Spain.
Well, I feel like back
you know what I mean.
It's kind of it's all blended.
Also, Ireland took it back from Slovenia.
I'm so proud of you, Ireland. Good job.
So, fun little world news there. So until next week, I've been Ashley.
And I've been Abby. And this has been the Sisters of the Shire podcast. Thank you for joining us today. And we hope you come and hang out with us next time.
Bye.